From Monday through Friday, we promise to be looking at optimum taxable entity compliance, prompt compliance for maximum public service. Because obviously, when we say, Governor, give us good schools, best of health facilities, best of roads, potable water, electricity, blah, 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 they need money. And that money, part of that money comes from your tax. Okay. Now, there are challenges in terms of tax compliance, in terms of tax evasion, corruption, short payments, and all that. Lack of data of taxable entities and all that. And there are reports that states lose billions monthly to taxes that were not harnessed. They're not dragged into the net. Okay, and we want to change this trend. We can change it. Some countries and some states have been doing it. And it's a stakeholder thing. It's a collective responsibility. We all can do it. We have in the studio with us the director of the National Orientation Agency in Rivers State, Barrister Ayo Tamro. Thank you for staying on.
Thank you.
We're having a hot tea this morning. And we also have with us again Dr. Pagi, he's a lecturer. Please complete that part.
In Rivers State University.
University.
I'm founder in economics.
Okay. Yes. So we want to look at this issue together, and we also open up the phone lines at some point so that you tell us your experiences as we go on. But before I come back to the guests, let me play a short documentary for about 5 minutes on taxation. Right.
Taxes are arguably the lesser evil, so let's focus on them. Taxes are an unfortunate reality for most people living and working in the modern world. We pay them every year, we complain about them, and then we try to forget about them until next year. Yet taxes are also one of the most important elements of any economy around the world. Societies can grow from effective taxation and crumble without it. Taxes are what fund our roads and schools and parks, our military, emergency services, social welfare, and everything else in between. These services are structural elements of modern society. We wouldn't have these without taxes, and without them, we would have chaos. So, do we need taxes? Well, not necessarily. They serve an important purpose, sure, but there are other systems that could theoretically achieve the same thing. Any alternatives that exist to one of the most important factors in our economies are worth exploring, even if some of them are a bit out there. You are watching an Economics Explained video made possible by our patrons on Patreon. If you enjoy these videos, please consider liking and subscribing. Before we start trying to prove Ben Franklin wrong, it is important to truly understand what it is that taxes achieve and why we pay them. Taxes are what a government uses to raise revenue to fund its expenditures. If a government does not raise enough taxes to fund these expenditures, it does what anybody else would do: take on debt temporarily to live above its means. This is the massively oversimplified cycle of government fiscal policy in our modern economies, and it should make sense to everyone. If we stop paying taxes, the government either has to stop paying for services that keep society going, or it takes on more and more debt until it ends up going bankrupt. So this is why taxes are levied. Simple enough. But there is more nuance to this argument. Certain economic schools of thought, not to mention political ideologies, advocate for raising fewer tax dollars and spending less money. Their opposition will argue that raising more tax dollars and spending more money is the way to go. Both of these sides will argue that their way is the right way to deliver the most overall prosperity to an economy. They can't both be right, right? Well, in a sense they can, so remember this for later. In either case, taxes will still exist. So now it's important to ask, why do people pay their taxes? Some people have made the argument that taxes are like paying a subscription to modern society. But let's be honest, it's not out of some civic duty to keep your nation going, or even because you think you will benefit from government programs. I mean, come on. Let's be honest. The real reason is that if you don't pay your taxes, you go to prison. As far as motivation goes, this is about as much as most people need. So, let's look at the alternatives. The United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Monaco, Brunei, these are all examples of national economies that operate without the need for income taxes. In fact, prior to 1913, the USA did not have federal income taxes. So this gives us an easy answer to the question of, do we need taxes? To which these countries would answer a resounding no. But this all comes with one big asterisk, or rather, two big asterisks. The first is that these countries do have taxes. They just don't have income taxes. When we explored the economy of Monaco, which is a nation famous for being a tax haven, we found that a majority of the government's revenue still came from taxation. In the case of Monaco, this was a value-added tax, or a sales tax. This is ideal for these tourist nations because it generates government revenue from people just visiting the country, rather than income taxes which require people to work in the country. Alternative taxes are a common feature for a lot of countries and they have a lot of advantages. Take Singapore for example. It still has income taxes, but they are incredibly low. What it does instead is levy taxes on things that require government expenditure. Cars are the best example here. Roads and highways and traffic lights and bridges and tunnels are all funded by taxes, apart from the few toll roads. These are expensive and not everyone gets the same use out of them. Someone who works from home and walks everywhere in a normal country is still going to have to pay for roads through their income taxes, even if they never use them. In Singapore though, they wouldn't really need to. Income taxes are low, but instead, the government of Singapore can easily cost 5 times as much as it does in the United States. This gives the Singaporean government the revenue it needs to pay for these public goods. If you don't need or want to drive a car, no worries, you don't need to pay. In many ways, this is a really fair system. You get what you pay for. Beyond this, it helps ease congestion in this tiny nation because not many people are going to drive given how expensive it is. However, this system is not without its problems. When a car costs as much as a house, many people are not going to be able to afford it. For some people, driving is just a necessity. They might be in an industry that requires driving, they might have disabilities that require easy transport, or they might live in a remote area with no easy access to public transportation. Remember this for later because it is very important. The arguments back and forth for this type of taxation are fascinating. You could make a video about it. Oh look, we did. But Singapore still has taxes, so it might be fascinating, but it's irrelevant. Instead, let's look at that second big asterisk. The other countries that get away without charging taxes have some alternative form of revenue. More often than not, it's natural resources.
You ready? Go on.
Okay, we are back. You just listened to a short documentary about taxes, the various angles and political and economic ideologies from different countries. Does that mean that taxing in the way it is operated could be relative and subjective? I'll ask this for both of you, but let me start with director.
Are you starting with me?
Yes. It's not orientation. I'm asking because from what we've just listened to, obviously you find the variation.
Yes.
For instance, there's one school of thought. The first question is tax even necessary or needed?
Yes.
And then with the argument, on one hand it says no, and on the other hand it says yes, and it gives reasons. And then it also goes to what do you call a modified kind of tax, like where in some government like Singapore you tax things that are used according to how you use road or expensive cars. So which means if I wouldn't buy Rolls Royce, they won't tax me. Certain tax will not come to me. You understand? So if I don't go to GRA, the people that pass through that area will be taxed. I wouldn't be taxed, which means I pay for what I use. Okay. Then there is also the part of countries who rely more on natural resources. Also the part of those who rely on VAT, which is sales tax. So if you don't sell anything, if I don't buy anything, or for instance, or you don't sell it, I won't be taxed. You know, so but I'm asking the first one, which is
Well, let me excite us a little bit.
All right.
Because when you talk about taxation,
Yes.
it directly goes to internal revenue that is generated.
very well. And I've reached out to them. None of them they have not replied.
Internally
I don't want to hear.
generated revenue, much
Yes.
of it comes from taxation
Yes.
and levies. And looking back to get the information last week that we have doubled our internally generated revenue in Rivers
Yes,
State.
that's kudos must go to the
It's
government. Yes.
a lot of kudos for the state government.
Yes. Within 1 year.
Yes, within 1
It
year.
means that before
In fact,
4 years.
less than 1 year.
Less
Yeah, less than 1 year.
Less than 1
I
year.
said within 1 year.
Yeah, because
So by 4 years, we hope to have
the
reached
issue of
100 billion.
yes, the issue of how much is our internally generated revenue, has been an issue of a bit contentious issue.
Very well.
The perception is that it has been
Lining
very
the pockets of some
opaque.
persons.
Opaque. In fact, every information about it appears to be clouded,
Mysterious,
appears
yeah.
to be eclipsed, appears to be hidden.
Should it be that way?
Yeah, it shouldn't.
It's a public
It shouldn't.
office, a public document.
And so it goes to the issue of open government partnership. And in fact, government appears to have taken the lead in terms of freedom of information, to have let that information out, taking it out from CSOs and NGOs that are always making that request. Now, having said that, tax is actually very desirable. Tax is desirable. There's nothing, it's just that the nature of our economy and the nature of our political economy, being a rentier state, we're a rentier state whether you like it or not. That is what it is. Where IOCs come to do business, do exploration, and pay whatever tax is determined. In fact, they determine how much royalty behind. It's not probably. I believe that it's not something that is solely determined by the NNPCL, but something that they determine to a very large extent how much royalty they pay to us. But now we are talking about, so we have that peculiarity as a nation in terms of our political economy. And so unless these rents are paid to us, whatever rent is paid to us is what we also calculate at the end of the day as earnings from our oil and gas economy, and also now distributes as allocation to the states. And this also has also brought its consequences. There's a bit of laziness on the part of the states, not thinking outside the box. Everybody wants to wait for allocation at the end of the month, and so you find out that some states can actually not break even at the end of the month. But taxation is actually where it is. You just raised the issue of Singapore, and where you said there's a differential taxation depending on what you consume and what you use. Of course, that is what puts it the other way around. Taxation has to be progressive. If it has to make meaning, of course, it has to be progressive.
Not
It is
cast on
normal.
stone.
Yes, it is normal that, for instance, in ours, those who are earning larger income normally pay more tax. In fact, the thinking has been that
Pay as you earn.
the thinking has been that for us Nigerians, that the people who actually pay tax are the public servants, because there's a lot of evasion in the private sector. Everybody wants to claim that
I didn't make any earnings.
I'm either unemployed, I'm underemployed, and or there is no earning at all. In fact, the the income declaration most times is even is nothing to write home about. We all are products of the system prior to this time, when before the tax were calibrated to what they are now. You go there, they ask you how many dependents you have. By the time you put all that, you pay little or nothing. But tax is actually desirable because that is where you pay for the taxes that are rendered to you. I know that people have issues about taxation. Nigerians, when tax is paid, and that is supposed to pay for the services that government renders, then people are happy to pay such taxes. But when tax is paid, and Nigerians again have to provide for virtually every social service that they have, is it water, is it construction of roads to your house for some streets that are remote, You know, even for electricity, people burn diesel, people burn PMS, and so on to give themselves electricity. Now people even buy transformer for PHCN and they are not even refunded. So that is where people have issues about taxation. Otherwise, the place of taxation, as old as human history, the place of taxation, we cannot actually take it off.
Okay, I will come back to you on why people evade tax. But let me first of all, I know yesterday you talked about giving rebates, encouraging tax breaks and all that as a way of also improving our dragnet. Yes. But pointing specifically to what Director just said, that these IOCs tell us what they want to pay. First of all, is it the international best practice? 2, is it in our best interest that you're coming to my country? Or is it as a way, or is it another style of rebate, you know, to encourage them to do business with us? Because in terms of, I know in the principle of negotiation, it's not good to always negotiate from a point of weakness, okay? But we have strength. It is our resources. You are coming in. I mean, there should be balance of negotiation. Yes, what's your view, Doc?
Okay, thank you very much. You see, the issue with this kind of tax evasion by the IOCs has 2 strands in terms of where it originates from. The first strand has to do with the lack of a clear working document with respect to how the taxation should be in the country. You know, I told you something yesterday.
There's no clear document.
It's always subject to interpretation by by whoever is presenting the documentation. Wow. It's just like I told you yesterday.
And our authorities allowed it.
There is corporate income tax. It is a clear thing.
Yeah.
Issued by the federal government. Then there is the pay as you earn, which is the prerogative of the state government. Then we now have these other levies
by local governments.
And these other levies now is one of the main places where they usually say it is subject to the presenter. So the presenter now determines how it should be. But unfortunately, we have also perpetuated it because it has become a source of income for those people who are making the deliveries of these things. So, what, in line with what Director said, let me make reference to Lindau's model. He's an economist, and in his model, he said taxation should be tied to the utility of the taxpayers. So, if a taxpayer is seeing a reward for paying tax, he sees what is utility. Utility is satisfaction. If there is a satisfaction derived from paying tax, then he will definitely want to pay more of his taxes. And what is the satisfaction every taxpayer is expecting? Provision of public goods and services. So the roads should be done properly. There should be light. There should be proper security. There are places you go to that are 24 hours in nature because there is a proper security infrastructure being made available by the government.
But the government is saying, we want to do these things, no money. One recurrent currency that you will see in virtually every successive government leadership is, we came, we met an empty treasury. 2, we don't, no money, quote and unquote, no money. And this is part of the things we want to, with a trend or a tide we want to change. Okay? Because the money is here. But each time they come, we want to do, as people demand, but government's hands are tied, so we'll take it according to how we can, you know. So, in consideration to their excuse, we want to do that thing you're saying. But no money.
No, which now brings me back to what I said yesterday. It's a two-way street. From this recording you played, I didn't know, I even went to do the research now and found out that even in Dubai, they have tax-free in terms of corporate income tax. So that means the federal power is not collecting anything from the corporate income tax. But they take VAT. And their VAT is even higher than our own VAT. It's about 15%.
And a lot. It's the next biggest hub where people travel to.
Because at
And
least
they deliberately created it.
they created it as an incentive.
Yes.
So we need to give the taxpayers like a form of regenerate their trust
Okay.
for government. We've been failed severally. So because of that failure in terms of the trust, of broken trust, it's hard to now tell me, okay, bring the money and I will do this now. We've been giving you money since. What have you been doing with the money? You know, and this tax, what is my utility? What is my gain from it? I was telling my wife which day, I don't know if my child will see pipe-borne water. I don't know.
Yesterday, I showed Don where I used to play in the 70s, what we call public pumps. I would know.
Yeah.
Public pump, till they don't have them. We go and we bait,
Everywhere.
so that we break the. Before you know, 2 days, water board, without calling, there was no GSM. So we'll come and fix it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Without any bribe or any motive, incentive or anything.
You know,
But today, 70s.
Today
So
you are
today we should be
building
having cold and hot water
Exactly.
running in your house and by your corner. What you have in Saudi Arabia.
easy. Today you must build house and consider
Your own water.
pipe-borne water,
Not
your
even
own
properly
drainage,
treated, not even
Your
properly
own
treated.
Your own road.
Yes.
your own transformer. So what is the benefit to the taxpayer?
Okay.
If the government is serious, you know, I believe Nigeria is in a phase of its transition right now,
Transition.
where we need to start accommodating or giving more interest to industrialization. If you say, okay, let's focus on industries. We are sorry, we have wronged you in the past.
Okay.
We have given you reasons not to trust us. Stakeholders sit-outs is important. National Registration Agency is here. Let's reorient ourselves.
Yeah.
Look, what do you want? What are you expecting? What are your challenges? If you have challenges, let's look at what you have as a challenge and let's see how we can come in as a government.
Doc,
But this
please
is
hold
where
your
we
thought
need to
there.
come
We'll
in.
go for, we'll take a short break. We'll
Okay.
take the news headlines at 11 and we'll come back and round up this interesting